Hi and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So this week I'm going to be talking to you all about psychological safety and why it's so important for managers like you to understand psychological safety as a concept. And more importantly, I'm going to share with you 5 things you can do to help create a psychologically safe team environment. So the psychologist Amy Edmondson came up with the concept of psychological safety back in the 1990s, but it's gained prominence now more recently on the back of the research that Google carried out into its highest performing teams, where psychological safety came out as one of the 5 ingredients for those teams. But before I share with you some really interesting research, as well as the 5 tips to help you, I want you to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. If you have subscribed, I love you, you're my favourite. And if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe and then you'll become one of my favourites too. And don't forget, when you're subscribing, click on the bell, because when you click on the bell, it will alert you as soon as I publish a new video. So you'll get it hot off the press before anybody else gets to see it. Okay, so what is psychological safety? Well, it's simply a shared belief among team members that it's safe to take risks in the workplace and that you can take that risk or take risks without fear of penalty or punishment in the event that risk doesn't quite pay off. And in 2017, an Australian research team did a deep dive into psychological safety research over the past 20 years, and they found 5 factors that help create psychologically safe workplaces. The first is supportive leadership behaviours such as coaching, being inclusive, being trustworthy, having integrity and being open. The second factor they found was supportive organisational practices. So that included making it easy for people to access mentors and having meaningful, high impact diversity practices as opposed to kind of tick lists. The third factor they found was the kind of relationships that people have with each other. So, and that's namely the extent to which people interact with each other on a day-to-day basis and how rewarding those relationships are. The fourth factor they found is the way teams are structured and how teams work with each other, so ways of working. And this included everything from reward and recognition, how that's shared across the team, how decisions get made in a team, and do those decisions enable collective responsibility. And the 5th factor the research team found was around a balance between team status and individual status. So this might be in terms of hierarchy, but the research also found it was about reputation as well. So for example, you might have a junior member of staff who is seen as a high flyer, and therefore they are awarded certain status, which in turn gives them the confidence to speak up and share ideas even with more senior people in the team. And look, if you still need convincing about the merits of psychological safety, the researchers also found 5 benefits in having a psychologically safe workplace. And those benefits are: number 1, better levels of communication, sharing of knowledge and levels of engagement. Number 2 was an increased openness to learning, including learning from failure. Number 3 was improved performance, including much more creativity and innovation than average. Number 4 was more positive employee attitudes, including high levels of commitment to the organisation that the team was in. And number 5 was increased levels of initiative, such as identifying ways around a problem or ways of kind of improving processes that might be impacting team performance. So, sound good? Want to know a bit more? Well, here are 5 things you can do to increase the psychological safety in your team or your organisation. So number 1 is evaluate and develop your leadership style. So ideally you should do this in partnership with a coach or a mentor. So you can gather feedback which explores the extent to which you display the characteristics which support psychological safety. And in the description for this video, I'll give you a link to a blog post that kind of sets out those characteristics. Then you can go on and build a development plan that's focused on helping you become a leader who can build psychologically safe environments. Because remember, the one thing you have absolute control of is you. So that's a pretty good place to start, right? Tip number 2 is review employee perception of current policies and processes and programs. So as the research that I mentioned found, organisations who were perceived by employees to have more supportive practices, such as mentoring and diversity programs, were seen to be more psychologically safe. So if you don't already have some kind of employee perception survey, then now is a really good opportunity for you to start one. And most medium to large organisations conduct surveys annually as a way to kind of measure progress. Tip number 3 is create opportunities for people to build and nurture relationships in the workplace. So this should be a mixture of formal stuff such as team building and informal stuff such as a lunch out or a night out. Ideas from various organisations that I've worked with include things like book clubs, international food days where people bring in dishes based on their cultural background, sports teams, network groups where people with common interests kind of come together, action learning sets for people to help each other on work related issues, or taking on a charity challenge. I did this latter one, so I climbed a couple of mountains in a couple of years along with cycling and all sorts. And there was nothing like walking right on the edge of a mountain pass, literally, to help people bond with each other. Tip number 4 is agree and define the team ways of working. So this is often where I find gaps when I'm helping managers build stronger, more collaborative and more cohesive teams. So without explicitly clear ways of working, that everyone can kind of point to, the danger is that people will fill that vacuum with their own stuff. Look, this doesn't have to be complicated. One team I worked with created or co-created 10 rules, which was made into a poster, and one of the things they did was put it on a wall, but they also made a little handout which was given to any new people joining the team, and it was kind of a key part of induction. And my final tip, tip number 5, is clarify each person's role and the value they add. So if some people are seen as more important than others, and therefore they're seen as maybe having a bit more status, then it's unlikely that those who perhaps see themselves as less important will feel psychologically safe to kind of come up with ideas or try stuff out. So one thing you can do as a manager is clearly set out the valuable role each person in your team plays. There is always something you can find, always. So for example, you might have a team member who sometimes struggles with their performance, you know, or maybe some projects, but who is brilliant at detail, you know. They're kind of brilliant at kind of copywriting or whatever. And so by hooking into the aspect of that person, you can not only help them feel valued and therefore a bit safer, but you can also use that as a way to explore performance issues in a more constructive way, again, which helps people feel safe rather than threatened. So look, those are 5 ideas, 5 tips that could help you create a much more psychologically safe environment, and they're things that other managers I've worked with over the years have tried out, and they're things that I've tried out myself when I was in a management position. But what kind of things have you done that have helped to kind of create a psychologically safe team environment? I say it every week. So I'm going to just keep saying it. You have a lot of wisdom to share. So what kind of things have worked for you? Pop them in the comments box below so that other managers like you can learn from your experiences. And did any of my tips stand out? Have you tried any of them out? And what impact did they have? I'd love to know. So pop them in the comments box below. And finally, you know what I'm going to say, because I say it every darn week. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe to this channel. So the more subscribers it gets and the more likes it gets, the more likely it is it will be shared with other managers who can benefit from the psychological based tips and tools that I share. And if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Again, it means that more people will start to see it and can benefit from the content. So that's it from me for now. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next Friday. Bye.